country is invoking Mahatma Gandhi yet again. Gandhi remains indisputably the most iconic hero for this country. He's been invoked many times this year, and what he really represents above all else is the power of a non-violent peaceful protest. We saw it replicated, that power, in the Anna Hazare anti-corruption campaign earlier this year. But on the program today, we'll be asking whether non-violent protests can really trigger dramatic change. Why is it that in other parts of the country, similar protests have not been able to necessarily create the impact that the protesters have sought? These are all some of the complex questions we're going to tackle on the program today. I want to start with Kiran Bedi, leading light of the Anna Hazare campaign. Kiran, what I find very interesting about your participation in this campaign is that you had a history of being a police officer. So to that extent, you were an emblem of the state, of the authority of the state. And then you were part of this campaign that at many times involved lakhs of people. And there was that commitment that Anna Hazare and all of you had made to the fact that it would be peaceful. Were you worried at any stage that that could get out of hand? And how important was that to you, given your history as an IPS officer?
By the 7th day of Anna Hazare's fast, we were almost going to be removed. A Baba Ramdev act would have happened to us, on us. That's the time when I stepped in as a police officer, spoke to the police commissioner and said, listen, between you and me there was an agreement that if Anna is not declared critical by the doctor, you will not come in the way, because this is a expression of fundamental rights of a peaceful protest. The numbers are very high. He said, ma'am, let me, because the rapid action force had surrounded the Ramlila ground. That's the time when I stepped in, because this is exactly what I believed in as a police officer. I'd handled many protests of these kinds. So when I spoke to him, he said, ma'am, give me a few minutes. He called me back after 15 minutes and said, yes, please tell the protesters there is no such threat and we will not remove them. And that's the time when we resolved the issue. Had he taken action, had he done a Baba Ramdev to us...
You don't know what may have happened.
I think the whole, despite Anna's exhortations to remain non-violent, the movement would have become violent.
And what would that have done to the movement? Would it have altered its basic character in a way?
I think it would have become very accusatory. It would have become provocative. And I think we wouldn't have reached this resolution as we did reach through the non-violent movement. Had that sudden act of police commissioner. And I was telling him, I said, remember, Brijesh, this issue of Anna Hazare is not between Delhi police and Anna Hazare's team or movement. It is between Anna Hazare and the government in power. So you only do your law and order duties as long as we don't turn violent.
Many people in the country are now turning to Anna Hazare. We've had the separatists in Jammu and Kashmir say, look at the unmarked graves issue in Kashmir. You've had Irom Sharmila. Do you believe that this was one such issue on which it was easy to create national consensus, and that's why the state had to respond? Whereas many other protests, they go on for years, but authority is not shaken.
This is correct, Barkha. And I think it united the whole country because the issue was an emotional connect and it was the truth of the moment.
Yeah, but General Seth, is the state somewhat at fault that till it comes to the very end, and even with Anna Hazare, we saw that in the government response, that till it's completely broken, nobody will fix a thing?
Well, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
The state wants to adopt a dilatory approach to see if the time can resolve this problem.
Delay. Yeah.
Just carry on avoiding taking a decision.
Yeah.
In this very case, as Kiran said, the cause was paramount. And once that happens, that famous thing that cooperation and consent, which are the two tools of non-violence, started withdrawing from the government. So that is where the government fell in line.
So you've served in the East, and there you have Irom Sharmila, and I've got Irom Sharmila's brother here, Singarjeet. I've also got Bablu, one of the most prominent human rights activists from there. They say that, okay, on corruption you created an emotional connect, but Armed Forces Special Powers Act, for example, is a much more contentious issue. Has the state responded as it should have?
No, the problem there is the cause is limited to the removal or invoking the Armed Forces Special Power Act. It doesn't concern the masses. That's where the problem is.
It concerns their masses, it concerns their people.
Nagaland, it concerns Manipur, it concerns Northeast to an extent, a portion of J&K. But it doesn't concern the entire country. It's a very localized issue, I will say. My heart goes out to her, to Sharmila. I've lived there
Yes.
in Imphal,
Yes.
and I know what it means.
Kiran, you served in the East as well. Quick response from you before we hear
I
from
think
the
that's
East and the North, Kashmir.
He's
Yeah.
absolutely right. As far as Anna Hazare's movement is concerned, you had a leader who people were willing to trust. You had a cause which is uniting all. Here is another cause which is uniting the region, but not the country as a whole. That's, I think, the big
That gets more complex. Bablu, can we hear from you on that?
To my understanding, sitting in Imphal, I see what Sharmila is talking about and what Anna is talking about is fundamentally the same. They're talking about accountability and governance. If you cannot get away with looting the public's money, you also cannot get away with murder and rapes. You don't put an exception to anybody, put everybody under the rule of law. That is what Sharmila is saying.
NDTV's cricket app, Android and iPhone. Fastest scorecard, special analysis, and much more. Download free. ndtv.com/apps.